I'm Jennifer Bilbrey, and this is On Our Minds, a podcast and blog about psychotherapy in Austin, Texas. You brought up something that I wanted to talk about, which is how difficult it can be because you're dealing with trauma, and because that can dysregulate people pretty quickly, especially if we're talking about childhood developmental trauma. People can get dysregulated so quickly, or if we're dealing with couples, dysregulation happens very quickly. How important it is and how much of a challenge it is as therapists to be doing our own work around regulation.
Yeah.
Because if we can't regulate ourselves, if we don't know even, I'm dysregulated, this is what dysregulation feels like, I'm in it, what do I do,
As therapists, it's so imperative to be doing our own work.
Yeah.
And this is an issue on which I'm very passionate about and can be quite opinionated about.
Oh, great. I love it.
Right. But I even have this.
About therapists doing their own work?
Yes, about therapists doing their own work.
Good.
Yeah. I even sort of have this idea, maybe for an article in my mind or it's just a headline right now, of don't go see a therapist who has not been in their own therapy.
Oh, yes. I love it.
Right?
It's so true.
It's so true. It's so imperative.
Yeah.
As you said, how can we be with and help other people with their intense emotional states?
Yeah.
Their dysregulation, their anger, rage, shutdown, all of the feelings we encounter if we haven't done that work ourselves.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that sometimes there can be even harm done when clients end up with therapists who haven't done their own work.
For sure.
Or have done maybe just a cursory, few sessions or whatnot, but haven't really delved deep to address their own stuff.
Yeah, one time I heard a therapist refer to it as maintenance. Like she was going to therapy every once in a while just as maintenance. It's a great example of how it does not work like that.
It doesn't.
I wish that it did, but it just doesn't. This conversation is also making me think about that idea of limbic resonance, and so it's just a concept that I've been chewing on a lot and thinking about in my own life and with my own couples and clients. And I had an experience with my husband just yesterday that was like, as it was happening, it was like, oh, this is limbic resonance. This is so exciting. I got a phone call, they had the wrong identity. They had the wrong information. They thought I owed money on a dental procedure that I have not had. And I got so angry because they had the wrong person and they were telling me that I owed money that I didn't owe. Yeah. And I just got so angry and I felt myself like almost at this rage state. And when I got off the phone, I called my husband and he was listening and saying, oh, that's awful. Yeah. Oh, that's terrible. And the more he was like, validating what was happening for me, I could physically feel like my blood pressure lowering, and just like the act of talking to somebody about it and having it heard and hearing his voice, I felt better. Yeah. And I could feel myself like go from up here, to just like, okay, I'm not gonna kill someone. I'm not gonna,
storm into that call center.
Yes, exactly. I had all kinds of fantasies happening about what I wanted to do. But the idea of limbic resonance being that we do that in relationship with each other, and that's why therapy can be so helpful if we're working with somebody who's working on themselves.
Exactly. I love what you're saying about limbic resonance, because I think, a lot of what happens in therapy and a lot of what happens that's healing really happens on this more nonverbal level, where we really connect in this mirror neuron to mirror neuron, the eye contact, the attunement, and particularly when one person, hopefully the therapist who has done their own work, is more regulated. Yeah. Is able to be aware of whatever they're feeling, but be able to regulate because they've done their own work and their system can handle it. Right. And then they can help regulate the other person, the client, who is coming in, say, with significant anger or rage. And we can help regulate through empathy and validation. I'm imagining that conversation with your husband would have been very different if he had told you, just calm down.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Great point.
Yeah.
Why are you making such a big deal about this?
Yes.
It was their mistake. You didn't do anything wrong.
Yes.
Yeah. He didn't do anything.
And that just builds the rage. That just escalates the anger.
It's true.
Because we're not heard. We're not understood. We're not validated.
No, yeah. Because he is attuned to me, because he knows, I guess, Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks for saying that.
Often that kind of misattunement that was really the trauma, to use that big word. It was really one of the kind of traumas that happened in the first place.
Yeah.
Where the parents, because of their own limitations, are not able to regulate the child's emotional states. So when the child becomes angry, has a tantrum, becomes upset about something, the parent themselves feels too dysregulated.
Yeah.
And so they have to say, calm down, stop crying, you're making a big deal out of nothing. You're so sensitive, right? How many of our clients have heard that?
Yeah.
You're being a baby, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And so it really sets up this dynamic, this message to the child of my feelings are not acceptable.
Right.
They're intolerable.
Yep.
So then I've got to shut them down. And as we know, that leads to a whole host of problems.
Yeah. So talk about attunement and what attunement would look like in that example of the child having a tantrum.
Okay, so with a good enough parent, right? And all we have to do is be good enough. There's no such thing as a perfect parent, and nor is that even desirable. But in an attuned parent-child relationship, the parent would validate and say, I hear you're angry. I hear you're upset right now. Depending on the age of the child, maybe they could hold the child, give them a hug, soothe them. And really, there's a lot of research on how that kind of the soothing, the holding, the kind of heartbeat to heartbeat.
It's skin to skin.
So the skin to skin contact, how regulating it can be, and how calming and soothing it can be.
Yeah.
And that the parent uses their own more regulated system to be able to regulate the child's less developed nervous system.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of developmental need, and task and attunement that helps the child then develop their own regulated system. That, through that more kind of attuned experience, they get the sense of, oh, my anger is okay. Like I can be angry about this. Mom can handle this. I can be upset, and mom's not going to reject me or abandon me. But in fact, she can be here with my emotional state. She can comfort me. Again, it's going to depend on the age of the child, but a lot of this needs to happen early on for the child to start to develop that more regulated nervous system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my husband was attuning to me when he said, oh man, that's awful. That sounds really terrible. That's so stressful.
It's beautiful. He was attuning to you. He was validating you. He had empathy for your experience. And, when you talked about couples therapy, I think that's a lot of what we're needing to teach couples.
Oh, it's huge, man.
Right. They didn't learn that.
No, there's such a dearth of empathy.
Yeah.
And we don't live in a culture that currently either teaches it, Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, in that in some ways we live in a culture that prizes individuality more so than connection, community. And so there might really be this message, hey, if you're upset, handle it yourself. Like, you calm down. I have nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
But we're really teaching, couples to be more in that kind of dyadic connection, where, as your husband was, that if you were upset, he could be there for you and, validate you, understand you, help you regulate, and how that creates a more secure and trusting relationship.
Oh man, does it.
Right?
So that skill seems easier to teach with couples when it is like about something that's like, I got mad about this phone call, about wrong identity, then it is about a thing that has to do with each other.
Yeah.
And when couples first come to therapy, that's the stuff they want to talk about.
They do.
He
did that, but then she did this.
Yeah. So it can be hard, tricky to teach it.
Well, it can be tricky to teach it. I think, initially when they're coming in with more of a he said, she said, or he said, she said, she said, right? Depending on the couple, that, I think the first task really is to de-escalate that blame. To help them, even to say something like, I'm wondering if we can just start to look at what happens between the two of you, rather than how you each feel the other person might be responsible. And I might even say, I know it's really difficult. I know it's really hard to view it through that lens. But then I might provide some psychoeducation that, in all our relationships, for better or for worse, we might get into these relational cycles. Into that word I sometimes use is feedback loops.
Okay.
And
attack, defend cycles. Is that what you're thinking?
Like attack, defend, pursue, withdraw.
Yeah.
Yeah. Attack, and then, withdraw. Yeah. And so I might use a couple of these examples, and then I'd say, I wonder if it might be helpful just to start to look at, just in your own relationship, which is unique, is different from other relationships, how this might happen, how this might play out. Ways that you might influence each other, again, for better and for worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Jennifer Bilbrey, and this has been On Our Minds, a podcast and blog about psychotherapy in Austin, Texas. For more information or to see more episodes, please go to my website at jenniferbilbrey.com. Thank you.